Welcome to News9 Live, and you are watching On Point with me, and I have 9 on points or 9 top stories for you. But let me begin with the first on point. Pakistan occupied Kashmir continues to burn on the 5th day. Massive unrest shakes Islamabad to the core. Massive unrest has erupted in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Authorities have deployed troops to suppress protests across the region. 3 civilians were killed and several injured after Pakistani Rangers opened fire at the protesters. The protest began in the background of economic recession and its consequences such as inflation, high taxation and electricity shortages. Now it has transformed into a widespread movement advocating rights and freedom throughout PoK. The protest led by the Jammu and Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee have witnessed the participation of the locals. The region-wide strike has paralyzed daily life with markets, trade centers and schools closed and transportation completely suspended. Protesters have initiated sit-ins and road blockades, intensifying pressure on the authorities. In response, heavy police contingents and rangers have been deployed. During heightened tension in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar reiterated that Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is an integral part of India.
आजकल थोड़ी बहुत बातें पीओके पे भी चल रही हैं, वहाँ कुछ आपने देखा होगा कि कुछ घटनाएं भी हो रही हैं। अब मोदी सरकार जो है, हमारा मत इस पे बहुत स्पष्ट है। पार्लियामेंट का रेजोल्यूशन है, हम बहुत क्लियर हैं कि पीओके जो है भारत का अंग है। इट इज पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया, इट वाज ऑलवेज पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया, इट विल बी पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया। और हमारा ये जरूर इरादा है कि एक दिन हम पीओके को जो है वहाँ का इलीगल ऑक्यूपेशन जो है उसको हम खत्म करेंगे और पीओके जो है भारत के साथ वापस जुड़ जाएगा।
And I've got 3 guests with me. I'm joined by Lieutenant General D.S. Huda. I'm also joined by Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, and my colleague and Executive Editor in News9, Aditya Rajkol. But let me straight away go to General Huda. Sir, though the protest, as of now, the news is coming in, they have been called off, but the fact of the matter is that the 72 hours, a different side of PoK was there. And on the right hand side, I will be showing you the graphic, the difference in economy, the difference in GDP, difference in poverty rates and everything to create a contrast between what India has become in last 25 years and what has become of Pakistan. So all my guests who are watching this show, please concentrate on the graphics and what our esteemed guests are going to say, because the God is in the detail and these details will tell you how India's destiny has been steered to a brighter side, whereas Pakistan behaves like a neighbor who has gone down the dark path. So my question to you, sir, is this just a protest born out of economic issues, or there are issues of freedom, rights and repression?
So firstly, thank you very much for inviting me. As you said, I think the immediate trigger is economic, and it was driven by protests over rising prices, issues of foodstuffs, electricity rates, etc. But I think if you look at, there's a more fundamental reason for what is happening in PoK. So while Pakistan calls it Azad Jammu and Kashmir, the reality it is hardly Azad. The Kashmir Council in Islamabad controls all the affairs. There is massive political repression that is happening here. Candidates who do not subscribe to the idea that Jammu and Kashmir should secede to Pakistan are not even allowed to stand for election. Similar pledges have to be made by all government officials. There are human rights issues that are happening in PoK. So I think, there are some fundamental critical reasons why these protests have been as widespread as they are. And it's not only to do with sort of economic issues, which, as I said, is perhaps the immediate trigger. But there are very basic freedoms that are denied to people in PoK, and that, I think, to me, is should be a deeper cause of worry for the Pakistani establishment.
Mr. Sareen, is there also Shia Sunni divide. Pakistan is a Sunni country. Even the minorities within Islam are persecuted. Is that also reflecting in the way the Pakistan establishment deals with issues in PoK, sir?
Not in PoK. PoK is at least the POJK part of PoK, because very often we confuse the two. I count PoK as POGB, which is Gilgit-Baltistan, and POJK. And what is happening right now is in POJK. In POJK, there is no Shia Sunni issue really, because the Shia population is very small, tiny really. It is a problem in POGB, where there are a couple of districts which are Shia majority, and there's a fairly large population of Shias, and there are huge tensions out there, which we see reflected. But in POJK, I think General Huda is absolutely on the mark. The economic issues are very real. Look, if you have to pay something like $60 for a unit of electricity, and the flour prices, the atta prices have gone through the roof, then it's an existential issue, and people are coming out and agitating. But I think General Huda is also right that a lot has changed in this region, which was taken for granted by the Pakistani authorities, that these are guys who will always be loyal, they will never secede. I think there is a simmering discontent which is there not only in this part of under Pakistan's control, but also, for example, you see that in Balochistan, you see that in parts of KP, where the Pashtuns are very restive, and in some ways at one level it's an ideological movement, but it's also a national movement, the Taliban, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So all of these factors are there. But now, look, Kartikeya, here is the problem. The Pakistani state has become very weak. It cannot really give any relief to its people. Its basic social contract has started breaking down, because the social contract means that the state protects the lives and properties and gives a degree of stability in the lives of people. When the state is unable to do all of that, then that social contract breaks down. And very clearly, we are seeing some of that take place before our own eyes. Now, how does, a people start agitating for a certain right? And clearly, yeah, there is an economic aspect to this. There is a political aspect to it. If you look at the kind of demands that the Awami Action Committee have laid out. But I think there is something, there's a deeper underpinning to what has led to, the kind of uprising that we are seeing. And what I mean by that is that, one, the social contract is breaking down. Secondly, if, for example, the Pakistani authorities concede to the demands of the agitators out here, what will happen if tomorrow similar agitations start in Punjab, because the electricity tariffs are only going to go up, inflation is only going to rise. There are far tougher conditions which are likely to be imposed. The IMF is demanding increase in taxation of the middle classes, for example, including on pensions. Now out here, pensions are taxed, all of that is happening. But in Pakistan, once you start taxing pensions, you have to tax the pensions of army officers. How is that going to be received? How much are they going to be able to take? And I think a lot of this, it's a problem of political economy which is coming into play, which we are seeing unfold before our eyes. And if the people start thinking that if by organizing themselves they can bring the state to its knees, which seems to be happening in POJK, then that is a template which others are also going to follow. So that means big trouble for Pakistan going forward, because this does not end out here simply because you've given into some of the demands that the agitators are asking in POJK. That does not mean other people are not going to make similar demands and not going to use similar methods to get their demands met.
Okay, Aditya, your thoughts?
Well, in this particular case, what has happened is, I completely agree with both the panelists who said that this was the immediate trigger was the economic reasons, but certainly there's a larger, discontent, and this is yet another summer of discontent in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And instead of a Shia-Sunni divide, what I see is a Shia-Sunni unity going against the Pakistani state. We've seen immediately after the protests began on Thursday and Friday, we had the long march organized by the common people. And the most interesting aspect of this entire campaign and movement, Kartikeya, is that this is not politicians-led. This is led by the business community and traders under the Joint Awami Action Committee. That clearly indicates that this entire protest, a long march from Kotli, Rawalakot, Mirpur to Muzaffarabad that reached yesterday, was to demand cheaper electricity. And look at the irony. The electricity is produced by Mangla Dam in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, is sold at rupees 2.59 to people in Pakistan. But the same electricity with GST and double taxation is sold at rupees 80 to people of Pakistan occupied Kashmir in Kotli, Mirpur, Rawalakot. Because that is a trend. The people of Pakistan occupied Kashmir are treated as second-class citizens. That's why the flour prices, the prices of anaj, are increasing and skyrocketing through the roof. Now a notification has been issued, but time and again we have seen, these are not the first time that protests have been held over the years on the causes of fundamental rights, political rights, as well as electricity, basic other commodities. There have been protests, there have been notifications issued just like the two that were issued yesterday by Pakistani Prime Minister, but again they have been backstabbed. So at this moment, Kartikeya, the last point that I want to make is that over the last 5 years, the interesting change yesterday was that there was bloodbath happening on the streets of Muzaffarabad. There were 3 civilians who were killed. There were multiple civilians who were critically injured. This was the same day when elections were being held in Jammu and Kashmir. So compare the two. In Kashmir, for the last 5 years, we have a path to peace. On the other hand, the kind of stone pelting and violence we used to witness in Lal Chowk, in Nawata, in Srinagar, is being witnessed in Rawalakot, Kotli and Muzaffarabad. And the people are simmering with anger. They are saying that we want freedom from Pakistan or we want to be with India, but we certainly do not want to live a life of occupation here in PoK.
I have a question for you, General Huda. One, is PoK, as we call it, is being treated like a colony by the Pakistani government? And secondly, yes, Pakistani army can be the glue, or maybe is the glue which keeps the nation together, but has it ended up destroying its economy?
So absolutely, Pakistan, treats PoJK as a colony. As I said, if you even look at the constitutional arrangements, technically they say, it's free, it has its own constitution, it has its own president and prime minister. But the fact is, the state of affairs is completely controlled by Islamabad, where, the prime minister and president can dismiss the government at any time. If you look at the constitution of PoK, you will find that the provisions are such that the complete authority and power rests with the central government in Pakistan. So it is treated completely like a colony. Freedoms are suppressed, as I said. Parties like the JKLF have been banned from participating in elections just because they do not accept that Jammu and Kashmir should secede to Pakistan. Yes, Pakistan army is deployed there in very large numbers, and that obviously does have problems and causes some discomfort to the local people. The fact that so much firing goes on along the line of control, or used to till the ceasefire was there, mostly triggered by Pakistani attempts at infiltration, has devastated at least the local economy in the border areas along the line of control. The fact that you have so many militant groups that are operating there, and if you look at some of the past writings about PoK, you will find that these militants have completely vitiated the sort of atmosphere within PoK. If you recall, the earthquake of 2005, which was the first group which came in for trying to provide relief and support, was the militant groups, because they are there in large numbers. So the fact that militancy has been encouraged, the fact that Pakistan army is in such large numbers, obviously all these aspects combined with the fact that human rights and political freedoms are very severely curtailed, is why you are seeing such an outbreak of anger on the streets of cities in PoK.
Okay, let me go to the second part of the debate. Let me play out a bite of Amit Shah and Defence Minister Rajat Singh, and let me frame that, and then Mr. Sareen can come in, Aditya, you and General Huda. There was a part of our diplomacy under Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh where senior diplomats like Mr. Lama and other people were involved, in which the whole effort was to make the line of control as a actual line, border dividing the Kashmir. There has been a strategic shift articulated in domestic politics that PoK is being seen very differently by the people who govern this country. Let me play out the bite and then I'll show the question, and please come in as to why this shift has happened in Indian political context. Let's play out the bite of Amit Shah.
फारूक अब्दुल्ला इंडी अलायंस के नेता कहते हैं कि पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर की बात मत करिए, पाकिस्तान के पास एटॉमिक बॉम्ब है। मैं कांग्रेस पार्टी और इंडी अलायंस वालों को कहना चाहता हूं, पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर भारत का है, इसको कोई नहीं छीन सकता, भारत से कोई नहीं छीन सकता।
पीओके हमारा था, है और पीओके हमारा रहेगा। मैं पाकिस्तान से यही अपेक्षा करता हूं कि आतंकवाद का सहारा लेकर यदि वह भारत को डिस्टेबलाइज करने की, अस्थिर करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो इसका खामियाजा भुगतना पड़ेगा।
Mr. Sareen, I think after Narasimha Rao, Prime Minister Modi is the second Prime Minister, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, who has put the Pakistan initiative in the cold storage. In a recent interview, he very categorically said, "Do roti kha ke jiye." The partition has happened. But from 1998 till 2014, there were a lot of back channel talks in context of Pakistan and Kashmiriyat and the people-to-people movement. Why this shift has come? Please take us through.
Karthikeya, I don't think even Mr. Narasimha Rao was at the same level as Prime Minister Modi is. I think in the case of Narasimha Rao, when the Kashmir insurgency erupted, we were pretty all right talking to Pakistan. We didn't want to make an obsession of Pakistan, which was right policy, but we were very, very keen to talk to Pakistan. It was at that point of time the great democratic leader of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, about whom people keep singing paeans in praise of. She was the one who broke off all contact and refused to talk to us. And it started changing again after she was replaced and Nawaz Sharif came in. But I think the kind of clarity that Mr. Modi has shown in a couple of interviews of his recently on Pakistan, this is exactly what was required. Secondly, let me tell you something, Karthikeya, and I remember this was conversations we used to have with the Pakistanis, that officially the Indian position was always, right from 47, 48, it was that the entire state of Jammu Kashmir is a part, an inalienable part of India. A part of it is under Pakistani occupation, and the only thing to talk to Pakistan is the evacuation of that particular area and handing it back to India. This has been the official position. But the negotiating position was that, look, we can't get it back. You can't take the Kashmir, which is with us. So let's just settle on as is, where is basis. That was the negotiating position. We used to tell the Pakistanis, and I know of a number of people who told Pakistanis very candidly that fear the day when we refuse to accept the LOC as a border and we make a claim for the whole state. And the day we start doing that, you will have hell to pay. I think that day has come, number one. Number two, I think we need to be very clear about a couple of things. I don't think the government right now is interested in any kind of military operation. But I think the position is now being made very clear that now there is going to be no compromise on the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this should really start worrying the Pakistanis. And frankly speaking, the Pakistanis always miss the bus, because whatever is on the table at a particular point in time, they go in for a maximal kind of a position and they lose out on whatever was on the table. So you go back to the 1960s during the Swaran Singh Bhutto talks. Some offers were made to the Pakistanis, they rejected it. That was off the table. You go back to the 2000, the 9 to 14 kind of talks which were taking place. Whatever was on offer at that point of time, that's no longer on offer. That's not even on the table anymore. So I think the Pakistanis need to wake up, smell the coffee and understand, the trajectory in which things are moving. If they don't, one fine day, there'll be no deal with them. And we will probably take the whole of, POJK and POGB and they'll be left twiddling their thumbs. In any case, you have to understand that if Pakistan is starting to unravel, and we are seeing manifestations of that in various parts of Pakistan. The Pakistan army is detested, hated. I have been watching Pakistan for close to 30 years now, and I have never seen this kind of abuse being heaped on the Pakistan army. There is something which has shifted inside Pakistan. I'm not saying that everybody is, going to be in love with India. Certainly not. India and Pakistan army are two completely different things. Very often we conflate the two. But the fact of the matter remains that that one organization which was somehow keeping the country together is today a detested organization. And I think this will have serious ramifications for the stability of Pakistan. And once it becomes really unstable, then all bets are off. Who knows what's going to happen after that?
General Huda, your thought? Very interesting observation. Very, Mr. Singh, very interesting observation. Rue the day when we decide that the negotiating position will change. General Huda, your thoughts? Why this shift has happened?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned that the current government and Prime Minister Modi have shifted their position on, or have a new position on POJK. But the fact is, I think they have a new position on Jammu and Kashmir as a whole, which includes our side of Jammu and Kashmir. And I think they looked at this problem with a completely different approach than was adopted by the previous governments. The fact that, the abrogation of Article 370 that has happened, the attempt to integrate Jammu and Kashmir constitutionally stronger into the Indian state, the position that they have taken on PoK are very, very clear. And Mr. Sareen is completely right. The negotiation that took place in early and late 2000s on things like soft borders and greater people-to-people contact, bus travel, trade across in Jammu and Kashmir. I think all those things are now completely off the table. And India has made it very clear that there are going to be no discussion as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. And our concerns on terrorism take primacy over all other issues as far as Pakistan is concerned. And if these are not addressed, then there is little point in talking to Pakistan. I think another thing that influences, the Indian decision on how to deal with Pakistan is the fact that today, if you look at Pakistan, multiple crises, political, economic, internal security, the problems they are having on the Afghanistan border, the fact that they are going to have to go to IMF for another dole, the kind of conditions that will be imposed. Whom is it that you can talk to? And is there anybody in Pakistan that can, in fact, be a credible figure to whom India can talk to? And I don't see any of that. So I think this government has taken a completely fresh look at the whole issue of Jammu and Kashmir and its relations with Pakistan. And it's a much more sort of realistic view based on what's happening on both our side and on the other side of the border.
Sareen, I'll take a closing comment from you, and let me be the devil's advocate. Let me position myself like this when I ask this question to you. People say that you must have sort of a dialogue with your neighbor. How does it serve India when you say that I don't think there is any point in talking to you strategically, sir?
It's good to be the devil's advocate, don't be the devil himself. But on your question, Karthikeya, so look, here is the thing. It's not my case that all negotiations should be stopped, no dialogue should be held. It's certainly not my case. But a dialogue has to be with people who are willing to have a honest conversation. If a dialogue is only to bide time and shove a knife in your back, then I don't see what purpose a dialogue is going to be serving. That is one. The second issue is that, frankly, I think things are moving so fast and in a direction that I don't think the Pakistanis ever imagined they will go this way. We keep talking about Prime Minister Modi. I remember, and this is, again, nobody's told me this is a published comment of a very close advisor to Prime Minister Modi, who was asked something in the context of China, but I think it indicates the thinking of this government, that if you start thinking through the consequences of every action that you take, you can't even move, a small finger. So there are times when you have to take risks. And what we have seen is that this government has shown remarkable ability of taking serious risks. So, for example, I would have been really shari of doing what they did on August 5, 2019, even though I completely agree with that decision. But I would have probably erred on the side of caution. But here was a government which was very confident and very clear in its mind that it's going to go ahead and do it no matter what. Again, I think this should serve as a wake-up call to the Pakistanis, because when this government declares its intention, then it's not just empty words. Somewhere in the back of their mind, there is a kernel of planning, which suggests that this is something they are looking at rather seriously. So I would imagine that if they are interested in a dialogue, then they have to first and foremost get off the hobby horse on which they have climbed of Islamism, of terrorism, of trying to compete with India, trying to be equal to India, parity, which has been their bugbear for 7 decades now, and of course on Kashmir. Until and unless they are ready to get off those hobby horses, I don't see what purpose is going to be served by talking to them on something which probably works for them, but really brings nothing to my table. So why should I be even interested in talking to them about it?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sareen. Thank you, Mr. Uda, for joining me on this discussion on what is happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And when I played out the graphics, Aditya, they made the destinies of the two countries, the journeys we have taken, very, very clear, that the path which the India has walked and the path which the Pakistan has walked and the abyss it has reached. Aditya, you stay with me, don't go away, because it's time for on point number 2, and that is Srinagar records the highest voter turnout in Lok Sabha polls since 1996. Turnout stands at 38%, and it's not a joke, because there is a constituency in Kashmir which locked a turnout of 58%, and that is Kangan.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
हर पल मनाओ